Hello, everyone. You're listening to Those Are the Girls with Mallory and Friends. I'm Mallory.
I'm Victoria.
And we are changing culture and bringing back traditional values.
All right, guys, we have a great guest today. We have Kangmin Lee. He is a speaker, commentator, actor, creator, and artist. As a self-proclaimed BlueAnon, did I say that right?
BlueAnon.
BlueAnon, sorry,
Like
destroyer.
QAnon.
Okay.
Anyway, continue.
BlueAnon destroyer. Kangmin is the host of his YouTube and podcast show, Korean Christian Conservative, and Conversations, I see, with Kangmin, where he explores contemporary problems in culture, news, politics, and theology through a biblical conservative lens. He is radically passionate about showing people the truth, preaching the gospel to the lost, preserving our God-given rights and freedoms, sharing the merits of survey. I tried. Conservatism, abolishing abortion in this generation, and fighting for faith, freedom, and family. A social media personality, he currently has 165,000 plus followers across all social media platforms, reaching over 6 million people per month. Welcome, Kangmin.
Sorry for that long bio, but thank you.
No, that's good. And that gives people like a little bit of like, who is this guy?
Oh, I got it. Conservatism. There we go.
I should do that. I should make that like into a t-shirt. Some of my followers recently were like, you should do merch. And I'm like, yeah, so thanks for the idea, Victoria. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. 10% of those proceeds goes to those other girls.
Yeah, if you give us a discount code, that'd be great.
I'll give you guys a good discount code.
No, but seriously, a lot of people probably do know who you are because you do a lot with Students for Life as well. And a lot of our audience has come kind of pretty much through Students for Life from our work with them. But can you tell us a little bit more about who you are, some of the other things that you're interested in? Let's get to know you a little bit more.
Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school?
Yeah, so I'm sure you guys can tell by my name. I was born in Korea and then I moved here, but I moved here when I was 1, so like I'm more American than I am Korean.
Yeah.
But I kind of grew up identifying more as Korean just because like I spoke Korean only at home. And I only speak to my parents in Korean. And then so, on the side, I like to, watch Korean dramas, watch anime, play video games, play sports. I'm a very average person. Like you look at me and you meet me, and if you didn't know my public personality, like everything I do on social media and all the activism and speaking that I do, you'd probably just be like, oh, this guy's just a normal, regular Korean American 1.5 generation immigrant. So yeah, that's kind of like what I like to do. And I grew up in New Jersey and I've lived all around the country, but now I'm currently in Atlanta, Georgia, in the South. And I really do like it because Southern hospitality is a great, great thing.
Yes. So funny story. I actually went to college in New Jersey, Seton Hall in South Orange.
Oh.
And then after doing my time there, I was like, oh, you know what? The South is where I'm meant to be. I tried the North. And the South is just where it's at. But okay, that's cool.
Why did your parents immigrate to the U.S.?
Well, my dad, like his job brought him here. And then my mom's side of the family, like all her siblings were already here. So then I was like, yeah, let's just move. And we're like, okay. So we just moved down here and then we've been here ever since.
It's cool. Do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I have an older brother and younger sister.
Oh, you're the middle child.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think you have middle child syndrome at all, or do you think?
Not really. I mean, I grew up as the youngest child for 10 years. And then my sister came along when I was 10. And then she became the youngest sibling. But like I never like was salty or had to fight for attention because I was given a lot of attention growing up. And like I don't want to like seem like I'm bragging, but I was the cutest baby. Like I look at my baby pictures, I'm like, and I see footage of myself, I'm like, holy moly, I was the cutest baby. So like that's why I got so much attention growing up. But good thing my mom, spanked me and disciplined me growing up so I wouldn't be super spoiled and bratty.
Yeah. And I'm sure your sister loves being the only girl and the youngest girl too. I mean, my mom is.
She likes it and hates it because it's like she enjoys having 2 older brothers who take care of her. But then it's kind of lonely. She's really young. And then also like she's the only girl. So then she doesn't have other girls like in terms of siblings to relate with, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
My mom was the youngest, and she had 3 older brothers, and my mom was so spoiled. She's low-key still spoiled by her older brothers, and they're like in their 70s. They still love her to death. Okay. Let's see. Vic, do you want to ask another question first? Do you want me
I was curious, what has been your experience being a first generation American?
I mean, it's been fine. So that's why for me, I was pretty liberal, like I guess growing up, I was very apolitical, and I think that was most of us. And then I went to college, and things started to ramp up, but still, I was kind of apolitical. But I was still pretty liberal because I was like, oh, like I thought Republicans were terrible, conservatives were terrible. I thought socialism was good. I thought we need to get rid of guns and all these things that are, you know, very typical left-leaning talking points. And then, but then when like things start to really escalate, and people start to talk about like systemic racism embedded into every single institution and corner in this country, I was like, that wasn't my experience growing up. And the only racism that I've like encountered growing up was from other minorities. So it's like, I never had a white person be racist to me at all. And I was just like, this doesn't match up with my lived experiences. So I was like, at least, because I've been around the world, like seriously, and I've been all around the country. I'm like, I haven't experienced one white person who's been racist to me. Like, this doesn't add up. If it's really embedded into every single institution and corner of America, that I would have probably experienced it by now, but I didn't. And then so that was the weirdest thing. And I was like, I never experienced oppression. I never thought I was like a victim growing up. The only time I felt disenfranchised just because of my race was when I was applying to college, and because affirmative action hurts Asians. And
can you talk about that really quick if you have any statistics you want to throw out?
Yeah. So for example, like an Asian student has to score an average like 400 to 600 points depending on the student's school, higher on their SAT to have the same chances of getting into that school as a Black student.
That's
and then
crazy.
so like I remember I was applying to college, and then I started to look at all my college applications, started to get them all back. I applied to 20 schools. I got rejected from 17 of them. And then I was like feeling so like, wow, like what the heck, man? Like I studied hard. My grades are good. My test scores are good. My extracurriculars, I worked really hard. I was an orc dork, like orchestra was a big part of my life. I also played volleyball. And so I was like the star student.
You were well-rounded.
Yeah, I was. And I was like, why wouldn't any college want to accept me? Like, honestly, like just objectively, like I could have done better for sure. But I was like, what is going on? And then I started to see all these articles and stories about this student got into all 8 Ivy Leagues. I'm like, wow, good for them. Let me see what their credentials were. I had higher test scores, higher GPA, and more like well-rounded and more accomplished extracurricular activities. And I was like, what? And I was like, it was a Black kid. And I was like, what? So if I answer differently, just that one question in the beginning of my college apps, if what my race is, and if it was either Black, Hispanic, or Native American, then I would have gotten into these schools. But just because I was born Korean, that I didn't, that was very, very disheartening. But other than that, I didn't really experience racism, and I had a great, like life growing up in America. So that's why I defend it, and that's why I love this country.
So what changed your mind? Like you said, like you were at school, you were like, socialism's great, like pretty much like I would say like your stereotypical Democrat. What changed your mind? Because it's like what you're fighting for today, what you believe in today is very different than what you were believing in college.
Yeah, so basically my last semester of college, fall of 2019, I stumbled across a video on Facebook about Trump. And it was a very typical video about how he called all Mexicans, rapists, drug dealers, criminals, whatnot. And I was like, oh, typical. Like, I really did not like the guy. I hate him. I thought if you're a Christian or a decent human being, there's no way you can support him. And obviously it's because I was only consuming left-wing media, and all my friends were saying the same thing. But then I saw a comment, and it was like, hey, like, here's the full clip of that video. And it was only a few minutes long. And you decide whether or not he actually called Mexicans this. And I was like, okay. I clicked it. And then even with my bias against Trump, I watched it and I was like, wow, it would be very, very intellectually dishonest for me to watch that and conclude from that Trump called all Mexicans that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, what is going on? And he talked about people crossing the border illegally, or bringing in crime, bringing in drugs, raping women at the border, trafficking children. I was like, wow, this is really bad if it's true. And as a Christian, I believe that these things are wrong and they're evil and we need to stop it. So I looked it up and I'm like, gosh, the statistics of what happens on the border. I mean, drug cartels make $25 million a week from all the drugs that they traffic. MS-13 gang members come in and then, they shoot up our cities. Children are trafficked. Women are raped at the border, so they're permitted entry. I mean, it's just really, really, really horrific stuff, like absolutely horrific. And I could get into more detail, but I don't want to get, too much into that. But I realized that and I was like, wow, I was lied to about this. And then so I started to watch more YouTube videos. PragerU came up and Shapiro Destroys videos and like Steven Crowder's Change My Mind segments. And I started to realize, like, as a Christian, all these things are very, very aligned with what I believe as a Christian. It's just I was lied to about the merits of socialism, the merits of gun control, the merits of the Democrat Party and all these things. And then I started to realize, like, wow, I've been lied to and I'm conservative. Like, this all just makes sense. This is just very, very common sense. And then that's when I became conservative, and that's what changed my mind.
I think a lot of people, just kind of piggybacking off what you said, I think a lot of people's minds were changed when they saw like what was being said and then what was the truth. A lot of people felt lied to, and then it's kind of like once you've been lied to and you are exposed to the truth, it's like you just can't go back now once you know what the truth is.
Yep, absolutely.
And I think like with this, like that was like with the media under Trump. And like I think people are also realizing it now under this Biden administration. I mean, I know people that voted for him just because he said, I'm going to forgive student loan debt. And then he said he did it.
Yeah, I know people that did that too.
Yeah, and it's crazy, like so much of what this administration has said, he has completely failed at and has completely, like, I mean, he said he'd never take the vaccine. And he's mandating, he said never mandate the vaccine multiple times. And now it's getting mandated for companies with 100 or plus employees.
But not his people in Congress. I want to add that. Like,
yeah, I thought it was interesting. I don't think he's mandating it at the White House either. No,
people in Congress and the White House do not have to have it. But regular, everyday people, 100 plus employees have to have it.
Yeah. And I will say, like, I do think people are starting to realize, like, how much of the promises that were made from this president and his administration and how much, like, he's gone back on them. And I think people are starting to realize that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I want to shift gears a little bit into talking about your stance on abortion. As you know, our target audience are females, and we talk about abortion a lot. We have tons of episodes talking about it, but I would love to hear a male's perspective on why you are anti-abortion. And then also too, could you tell us why you as a male should even have an opinion? Because, a lot of, when you go to the rallies, stuff like that, the other side always has no uterus, no opinion. And can you tell us why, even though you have no uterus, well, as far as I know, not trying to assume
but you should still have an opinion.
Yeah, but why you should still have an opinion.
Yeah.
Can I ask real quick too, when you were kind of going through your Democrat phase, were you always pro-abortion?
Oh, that's a good
Or
question.
were you pro-abortion or were you always pro-life?
Yeah, so I was actually going to start with that. I was actually pro-life. So here's the thing. I was always pro-life ever since I knew what abortion was, because it's funny because my freshman year writing seminar class, I actually wrote about abortion and why it should be illegal and why it's wrong. Wow. And I did tons of research on it. And yeah, I mean, scientifically, logically, philosophically, morally, ontologically, like from every single standpoint and every single angle you can approach the problem, abortion is wrong. And why is it wrong? It's wrong because it is the intentional killing, which is murder of an innocent, vulnerable human being. It doesn't matter if it's in the womb or outside the womb. It is still a precious human being. And especially because it's a child, young, innocent child worthy of defending and worthy of protection. So that's really like why I speak out on it. And for me, I was always pro-life, but I wasn't like super uber pro-life. I was just like, yeah, like I'm against abortion, but I didn't really realize the gravity of it until God put it on my heart early 2020. And the way that God really did it was he reminded me of like my sister. And so I mentioned that my sister's 10 years younger, and I still like, I will never ever forget this memory, but first bringing her home from the hospital. And I was in 5th grade, so I was still a small kid, but even then she was the size of my forearm. And then I was holding her in my arms, and I was like, wow, like there's something different. Like once you hold that baby in your arms, and she's not even my child, it's my sister, but like, you know that this is a child. And so, you know, let's say, for example, because a lot of these pro-abortionists, they think that you should be able to kill a baby right up until birth. Like maybe, what if she was born like 5 minutes earlier, but my mom just didn't want to have her and just wanted to get an abortion and kill her? I mean, it's ridiculous. And I was like, no, like this is life worth protecting, and it's so precious. And so that's why I speak out on it, because I believe as men, our duty and our role in a healthy, productive, thriving, moral society is that men prioritize and embrace their roles as being protectors and providers. And who do you protect? You protect the most vulnerable. And who are the most vulnerable in our society? Babies. And who is being targeted right now and being intentionally killed? A million of them, 2,363 babies a day. That's babies. I mean, they're literally targeting and killing babies. And as a man, I can't just be on the sidelines letting it happen. And then in terms of the no uterus, no opinion thing, first of all, I mean, these people who live in fantasy world have no right to talk about it. Like, I don't want to sound like I'm being too rough or like too harsh about it, but the reality is, if you think that you can just be a woman because you identify as a woman, although you have no characteristics of a woman, and you still have a schlong, you have testosterone and all that stuff, you are not only degrading women, but you are completely destroying what it means to be a woman. And so they live in this fantasy world where you can identify as something and then the world has to adapt and change because you believe that you are a woman, or you are a polygender, demisexual, two-spirited, non-binary person. I mean, like that's not how it works. And a lot of these things that they espouse has no basis in material reality whatsoever. So then when they say no uterus, no opinion, I'm like, okay, well, now they literally say men can give birth. They say that men can menstruate. Okay, so that I'm a man, can I menstruate and give birth? Like, no, you can't. I'm like, okay, what if I identify as having a uterus? Then can I do it? And so their logic just completely implodes on itself. But ultimately, here's the thing. If it does result in the murder of a human being, I, as a man, even though I can't give birth, I still have a right to speak out against it, because these are babies being killed. And then they say, oh, you can't tell a woman what to do with her body. I'm like, we do that all the time. You know, women can't eat like certain things when they're pregnant, right? Like you're not supposed to eat sushi when you're pregnant or things like that, right?
Can't have alcohol.
Like you can't have alcohol, you can't smoke, you can't do these things because you know it's a human being inside of you, so you can't harm it. But in terms of like a high level, like overview type of way, we tell people what they can or cannot do with their bodies all the time. You can't murder, you can't even drink until you're 21, you can't run around naked, you can't do a lot of these things that you say, like, it's my body, my choice. I'm like, yeah, but there are restrictions, there are limitations. And when it comes to abortion, when a woman is pregnant, like, I'm sorry, but no one, whether it's the abortion doctors, a male or a female, whatever, or the mother carrying the child, just does not have the right. There's no constitutional or God-given right to kill a child in the womb. So that's what I have to say.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Chef's kiss. Great response. Vic has a special question for you.
Okay, so some of the pro abortion women claim that, and we've talked a lot about how like birth control is actually like very harmful for women. I've gone off of it because it's really messed up my hormones. And so some pro-abortion women are claiming that men should get vasectomies because vasectomies, if men want to dictate how a woman does, like, chooses her body, then men should be the ones getting vasectomies because vasectomies can get reversed. What are your thoughts on men getting vasectomies for that standpoint, for like a birth control standpoint?
I think it's stupid, and I think that argument is completely a red herring argument. Here's the thing. I really try to give, like, I really give them the benefit of the doubt. Because, like, for me, I'm inherently a people pleaser, and I don't like to go against the grain. I've lost so many friends, and a lot of people hate me. And they say all these insults to me, and personally I don't like that. So I'm like, okay, like, what if I'm just wrong about this whole abortion thing? And I looked into it and I'm like, man, every single argument that they give is either a straw man or a red herring. It's a complete mischaracterization. They start to attack an argument that's not even there. For example, like, oh, pro-lifers are just pro-birth because they don't care about the baby after birth. Like, yeah, we do. We offer so many millions and millions of dollars of resources to women every year after birth. And then also, you know, it's red herring. Like, for example, you're not pro-life because you don't like socialized healthcare. And I'm like, what does that have to do with killing babies? Yeah. And so the argument always comes down to, is it a life in the womb? Is it a human being? And that is literally the answer, like the question we must answer in order to understand the morality surrounding this. Because it's not about bodily autonomy. It's not about all these, you know, reproductive rights, healthcare, whatever. It's literally a conversation around the existence and personhood of that baby in the womb. And if it is a person, which from every single standpoint, again, scientifically, morally, logically, it is a being, it is a human being, then it should be protected. And so when you think about birth control, right? First of all, 99% of abortions are from consensual sex. So it's like, you know, they talk about rape and I'm like, okay, that's a separate conversation, but most of these people only use instances of rape as a bludgeon to, like, morally and, like, emotionally manipulate you to like into submission, say, you hate women and you don't care about women who are raped. I'm like, no, like, I think anyone who rapes a woman should be castrated and thrown into prison for life. Like, it's a horrific thing. But you know what's a really great way to, like, not even have to think about abortion? Just stop having sex outside of marriage. Yeah. Like, have you, like, they're like, oh, the condom is 99% effective, or this 99%. I'm like, abstinence is 100% effective.
Bingo.
And so, like, just to stop having sex with people you're not married to. That's literally the best solution. And it was really funny because a lot of these pro-abortion activists on Twitter and on Instagram were saying, you know what? If Texas men are gonna dictate how dictate our bodies, then let's just not allow men to have sex. And I'm like, yes, that's great.
I saw that. I was like, whoa, they get it.
I'm like, yes, they get it. Like, don't have sex with people outside of marriage. It's great. Stop sleeping around. Amazing.
Yeah.
And
but
so,
like, we've talked too about that. It's like, okay, like, we haven't been taught, like, I mean, you know, like, a woman can only get pregnant when she's ovulating.
Yeah,
that's like a couple of days a month. So like, why aren't we teaching, like, our women? Because I didn't know this, like, until I was, like, doing my Catholic classes for marriage. Like, I'm like, that's how you get pregnant? I thought it's just when you're not on your period.
Yeah.
And so, like, we're taught that it's like, oh, like, if you want to have sex outside of marriage, then you need to be on the pill. And you need to be doing, like, birth control and all that. But it's like, no, like, actually, if you track your cycle, you determine when you're ovulating. You just don't have sex on those days when you're ovulating, when you're fertile. And, like, that's, in my opinion, that's a lot safer than birth control, because that's how, like, these unexpected, like, a lot of these girls are like, oh, I was on the pill and I got pregnant. And it's like, yeah, because you are not taught when you're ovulating. Like, you're not tracking. Like, if you're doing natural family planning and tracking when you're on your period, like, I do the thermometer every morning to determine when I'm ovulating. And, like, me and my husband are not ready to have kids, so we don't have sex when I'm ovulating. And, like, that's how, like, we do our birth control, essentially.
Yeah.
Right.
And just two things really quick. When Vic sent me that article, I literally said, that's stupid. Like when that was my first response. So that's hilarious. We had the exact same reaction. And then the second thing I was going to say is I am very pro abstinence. Don't have sex until you're married. Obviously, things happen. God forgives. But what I was going to say is lost my train of thought. Oh, I was going to say, when you're living in this world where you need instant gratification, you need you're going out doing X, Y, and Z, you don't have time to be tracking. You're not thinking about, okay, actually, all right, let me check, was I ovulating this morning? Okay, so people just go out and do any and everything. And that's why it's so important and we talked about this in our last episode, important about the denying of yourself. Like this all goes back to like, if you're going to be like, abstinence is hard, especially when you're an adult and the whole world, like the entire world is telling you not to. I mean, the entire world. Like if you're listening and you're not quite an adult yet, I want you to know the entire world is going to tell you not to. Even your good Christian friends are going to tell you not to. But it all goes down to the denying of yourself, okay, this is something, and you're not necessarily doing it because, you're doing it because God wants you to. Because if you don't do it because God wants you to, you're never going, like, if you get a boyfriend that changes his mind, something like that, you're never going to do it. You have to do it because God wants you to do it. That was just my soapbox for 2 seconds. There was something else I was going to say.
Well, I have a question. Like your thoughts, like I've seen so many women that a lot of them are like business women too, that they vote Democrat. They go, I believe in everything in the Republican Party, but the abortion, and I'm pro-woman, and I believe in like women's health care. So I voted Democrat because that's my number one issue, even though I agree with the Republicans on the tax side. And I've like wondered this, like as a like conservatives, and like I'm curious how you would respond to this. As conservatives, should we just drop the abortion issue? Because it's going to like, I don't know, like that's something like I've been wondering, like not saying like I'm for dropping the abortion issue, but I'm wondering like, would we be attracting more moderates? Would that help us win elections to have conservative values if we kind of drop the religious and the abortion issue?
No, I don't think so. And the reason why I say that is, first, like I always say this, but vote pro-life first, because if these people are not pro-life, typically it's a good indication of where their morality lies. But like, not only will we not win, okay, so not only will we as Christians be compromising on our morals if we just say, hey, like let's just big tent, accept whatever and whatever just for votes, but we'll also lose elections, because the vast majority of the United States thinks that we shouldn't have abortions up until the moment of birth. I think it was like 70 to 80% or something. Because, the reality is they see late-term abortions and they say, my goodness, that's horrific. Like any normal, sane person, that's why live action, is really good at getting the information out there. Hey, this is what actually happens. And these are pictures of aborted babies, like 20 weeks old, 19 weeks old. And they're like, what the heck, man? That's not okay. And a lot of people change their minds. But I think we shouldn't ever compromise on morals, because that's how we've lost and that's how we've been losing. So the Republican Party is supposed to be the party of conservatives like today, but unfortunately the Republican Party has been the party of it's literally just been the Democratic Party and just progressivism going the speed limit, because the Democratic Party keeps going left. These progressives keep going more further to left and getting more radical, and the Republican Party is like they're going so fast, but I don't want to I don't want to disenfranchise or like exclude people, so let's just accept a little bit. Accept a little bit. So we'll accept a little bit of taking God out of schools. We'll accept a little bit of being okay with Roe v. Wade. We're going to be okay a little bit of taking God out of every single institution. Oh, we're okay with no fault divorce. Oh, we're okay with the legalization of same-sex marriage for all, and then letting them adopt children. And then we're okay with trans people going to bathrooms. And then we're okay. We keep moving. And a lot of Americans actually don't like these ideas. And then so it might be a small minority of people who are maybe a little moderate, but ultimately, I don't think we should ever compromise on our values, because I honestly don't think we'll win elections either. But like, what if we do win elections? Then our whole platform is already compromised, because we're like not super anti-abortion. So they're never going to solve abortion. But if we truly do believe that abortion is the greatest and most horrific human rights violation in this country today, then why aren't we fighting for it? So we have to have standards. We have to impose these standards. And this is what the left does really well. They have standards, and those standards are obviously always changing, but they have those standards, and then they impose them and they push them. And so for us, like as a Christian, I believe that this isn't just political, it's biblical and it's spiritual. So we're not fighting against and wrestling against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and rulers of darkness. And so what the left is pushing today, it's not just a political agenda, but it's a spiritual demonic agenda from the enemy to destroy families and to sexualize our children and to get God out of here and God out of institutions and God out of this country in order to let wickedness thrive. And so as a Christian, I believe that we need to be on the forefront of fighting for what is good, what is true, and what is pure. And if it's even for the sake of winning elections, I don't think we should ever compromise our morals.
That's a good
agree.
answer.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. I definitely think that so I do a lot of Republican activism in my county, and I do a lot of different things, and I'm always shocked at how many people are like, we're not going to talk about the pro-life issue, or like, don't bring that up. I'm shocked, because I genuinely don't understand how you can say you're a Republican or even say you're a Christian and not be pro-life. It just does not compute to me. Specifically conservative, like a conservative Christian, and then kind of be like about abortion. Shocking to me. But I really I agree. I do not think we need to move the goalposts. I think that is going to harm us. And also too, like, to that, I do think that, I mean, yes, there are definitely women who I think they're just really uneducated about the women's body thing. So that is our job, to educate people. And I do think there are certain people who will, even if they disagree with us on some of the religious aspects or even some of the pro-life aspects, they're going to see the other side going so crazy that they're just going to swallow their pride and vote with us anyway. That's why I think I agree with you, if we just stick with what we believe in, and especially, I am 100% with you also too on voting pro-life first, especially the pro-life issue, because the reality is, like, if we have created this arbitrary time when life begins, and that's what they're doing when they're saying, so right now in Texas specifically, life only begins at 6 weeks when there's a heartbeat. We know life begins at conception, but if they're going to say life begins at 6 weeks, okay, and then 3 years from now they can change it. Actually, we think life begins when you can feel pain, so that's 20 weeks. If we keep giving these, allowing the government to give us these arbitrary times of when life begins, I mean, who knows how crazy it's. I mean, it's a slippery slope fallacy, but I mean, we've seen the slope slip over the last couple of years, so I don't think it's that far-fetched. So yeah, absolutely. I definitely believe everything you said. I'm 110% down.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, so the slippery slope fallacy is not a fallacy, right? Because we warned that, hey, if we continue to glorify transgenderism, then eventually there will be predators who leverage that in order to prey on young girls. They're like, stop it, you're just transphobic. What do we see in WeSpa? What are we seeing about stories all across the country where grown men are going into women's spaces and preying on young girls, and then literally store owners, employees can't do anything about it, and police officers can't even prosecute and arrest these people, because under the law, if they identify as a woman, you can't do anything about it, right? So I always say this, but this is the biggest reason I speak out. The biggest reason why I speak out is because our children always pay the price for the foolishness, wickedness, and laziness of adults, where we try all these like progressive social experiments, and then kids end up being like the guinea pigs, and they end up being the toys for these progressive social experiments, and it hurts them the most. And our kids are are literally the people in society we need to be protecting the most and preserving their innocence before they're adults and ready to be engaging in the real world. So then when you think about the abortion issue, I think it's really important for us to also highlight how it's so anti-women. They say having abortion is pro-woman, no, so anti-woman. And the reason why I say that is because there's a reason why the early feminists were pro-life. They were very pro-life.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw this post
really,
recently.
Wait, sorry, really quick. We actually have some blog posts, everybody, on our blog about Stephanie wrote some about the early feminists that were pro-life. So if you want to read more about that, check out our blog. Continue.
Yeah, essentially. But I saw this post about this pro-life feminist posted on Instagram, and I totally agree, because they said abortion is anti-woman because it allows men to view women simply as objects of sex and objects of their pleasure. And then so what happens, and this is very, very true. So when you have abortion literally so accessible and as just another method of contraception, right? Men literally just get to sleep around and just see women as sex objects, and then they don't have to pay the consequences and escape the responsibilities of being a father and being a protector and being a husband. And then so what they do is like, hey, they bring the woman into the clinic and then they make them have an abortion and kill their own child. But the man does not pay the price for this. It's the woman who pays the price for it, because not only does she have to go through the abortion procedure, but woman, if granted they're not some homicidal psychotic maniac, they will be further traumatized and further hurt when they get an abortion. Suicides, mental depression, anxiety rates, all of these things go up exponentially for women after they get an abortion. And then if a woman is raped, and we know this to be true, there are tons and tons of stories of journalists like David Daleiden and Lila Rose and Planned Parenthood going into Planned Parenthood clinics and seeing that Planned Parenthood clinics and abortion doctors, they literally allow rape to continue because they cover up rape, because again, it's an incentive profit. It's a profit for them, and it gives them incentive to cover up rape. Because if there's a man raping a woman, and this is kind of explicit and I get it, but this is the truth. If there's a man,
trigger warning, go ahead.
Yeah. So if there is a man abusing a woman and sexually abusing and raping a woman, or incest and things like that, bring the girl into the abortion clinic, make them get an abortion. Planned Parenthood, none of these abortion clinics report it at all. Bring the woman back home and continue. And then if they get them pregnant again, bring them back into the clinic and then have an abortion. And it's just disgusting, absolutely disgusting what's going on with the abortion industry and abortions. And Planned Parenthood and all these clinics, they actually enable rape. They enable rape, because if you make abortion illegal, and you force a man to provide and be the father for that child, all these disgusting, horrific, terrible men, quote unquote men, who rape women and see women as just objects of pleasure, they're going to think twice. They're going to think twice, because now they have to pay the consequences of doing that. And then so you see that abortion actually hurts women because it enables rape and all the sexual abuse. And also it hurts and further traumatizes women. And then we have to get that through. And this is just all scientific, and this is actually happening. And a lot of people don't know this. And then so people call me anti-woman. I'm like, no, I am pro-woman. And I believe in protecting women. And I believe that we should hold rapists accountable and prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law and punish them. But also make sure that there are no little loopholes for men to get away with rape, which is exactly what's going on in the abortion industry. So we also have to make that very clear. And this is what the early feminists understood about abortion. And they're like, we don't want men to just impregnate us and then be able to kill our kids because they see us as objects of pleasure, because women are so much more than that. And women are, not only daughters of the king, but just, fellow human beings are worthy of protection and worthy of honor.
Loved it. Great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Great points. I really think so. What we do on the podcast, we talk about like your liberal Lizzie friend. So your friend that is liberal, and we do really want to provide resources. And I really think everybody listening, that section is really good to share with your liberal Lizzie friend. Maybe I'll cut it out and figure out how to share that, because abortion hurts women more than, well, it hurts the child, but aside from the child, it hurts women more than anything. And I think that hearing a man say this as well is so important, because we are constantly hearing from women, which we should. I definitely think women should be at the forefront of this conversation, because, women we're blessed. It's a blessing to be able to carry life. But it's also so important for men to speak up. It's so important to have men speaking up for numerous reasons, like you said earlier, because men are protectors and providers, but also too, because at the end of the day, it is an issue that does affect men. You have to have a vagina and a penis to have sex. There has to be. I mean, sure, people freezing eggs. We're not talking about that, but like the average everyday human is
I don't
created.
think you'd go through fertility to get an abortion, like a fertility treatment.
Yeah, no. That's true. If you're going through that would be so sad if you go through all that. Anyway, my whole point is though, like, it's a issue that also affects men. And I think that it's I love that you speak out so openly about it, and it is something that is important to you. That's really, we need more of that. So if we have any men that listen, first of all, thank you. I hope you are okay with you get past all the pink and
Hey,
all
Jerry.
of our, yeah, Jerry. So one of our, I don't know if you know Melanie Salazar.
I don't think so.
Okay, well, her boyfriend listens. He's super nice. But anyway, he's like our biggest fan, one of my friends. And but anyway, so if you are listening, like, this is something that is really important, and it is something that men should definitely be speaking out at. Whenever I go to protests and things like that, I personally find it very strange to see men on the pro-abortion side. That, to me, that screams like, okay, this guy's probably crazy, an abuser in some way. Like, how can you be so for abortion? That's
trying to
creepy.
hook up with the girl next to him.
Right. He's there for the girl. Like,
Yeah.
This is really creepy. I'm uncomfortable. But I feel like I don't see as many men on our side, and I do want there to be more. Students for Life does a really good job. As you know, we always shout out Students for Life, but Students for Life does a really good job training men. And I just really want to encourage any of the men listening to try to be as active and as vocal as you can, because your voice really does matter. Don't feel like you can't speak. Don't listen to those no uterus, no opinion, because like if you were saying the opposite thing, they'd be super happy for you. I saw that lady, oh gosh, Jamil or something like that. I don't even know what she's been in. But
The Good Place.
That's
The Good Place.
Okay. Well, her name pops up all the time, but I saw her. She was like, where are the men? Why aren't the men speaking up for us? And I was like, because you told them to be quiet. What do you guys want? But yeah, Vic, do you have any questions in regards to this? I was thinking we can transition to our next couple of questions.
Yeah, I was going to ask a transition question, I guess. So, kind of relevant. So, since you're transition to conservatism, what all have you gotten involved in
terms of like organizations?
or
like
yeah
I definitely very involved with like PragerU and Live Action, Students for Life, Let Them Live, Turning Point USA, Freedom Center at Liberty, and a lot of organizations. Yeah.
How did you get involved with them?
Well, it kind of all started with Prager Force. So Prager Force is the student and young professional arm of PragerU. And then I joined them and I got to know a lot of people. And then from there, like I just started to do things with PragerU as a Prager Force influencer. And then from there, my platform kind of started to grow. And then after my platform started to grow, people started to find my profile, and then they started to like the things that I post, and then they would ask me to be an ambassador, or they would kind of be like, hey, like come out to this event we're having, and I'm like, okay, cool, let's do that. And then that's just kind of like how I got the ball rolling.
Okay, because I think something like we push really hard is like, if you're passionate about topics like this, you need to get involved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so just kind of curious for like someone like that's pretty much brand new into this world. You've been here like probably what, a year and a half, roughly, almost 2 years. Yeah,
less
like
than a year.
less than a year. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, this is like you can get involved and make a difference and have your voice heard. Like that is something that's like really important that we want to highlight.
Yeah, and really quick, to plug in, if you're listening, we really, really want to just reiterate, we're women of action. So it's great to, share things on social media. Do not stop doing that, because we definitely need other voices in the culture. But go out, volunteer, go at your pregnancy resource center, go door knock for Students for Life, go door knock for your local judge. I know in North Carolina, we have some judges races coming up. Go door knock for your conservative judges. Like,
We have municipal races coming up.
Yes. Well, ours were pushed back.
Well, local towns.
Yes. Everyone except for Charlotte, even though they raised, just side note, the Charlotte is run by Democrats, except for two Republicans, and they raised their salary and then they pushed back the elections. So that just gives you a little bit of insight on like how the Dems think. They're not for you, everyone. They don't care about you. They raise their salary and then they push back their elections. Okay, sorry, go ahead. Vic, you were saying something?
No, I'm good.
No? Okay. So the next question, we're going to transition a little bit because we are kind of going a little long, but that's okay. So we're going to transition a little bit to like just a little bit more getting to know you. But first, let's talk about relationships. You are single, ladies. You hear that he's single and he's a Christian conservative. What are some things that a Christian conservative man is looking for in a woman? And then if there's anything specifically for you that you're looking in, you can go ahead and talk about that too.
Well, I think first and foremost, it's always like, is she a woman of God? And then it's like, is she a Proverbs 31 woman? And does she really long after what God has laid out and what a woman should be in the Bible, right? And that's always key, because that if you have that, then everything else flows from it. Because you think about all like I want a woman who's kind and compassionate. It's like, yeah, that will all come as fruit of a genuine relationship with God.
Yes.
So that's like the first and the foremost thing that I think all guys look for. And then there's like little quirks after that, right? But I think two of the main things that every guy looks for, every actual like God-fearing man looks for, is a woman who loves the Lord and hopefully and ideally loves the Lord more than she loves him. And then secondly, someone that they can really enjoy spending time with. And then so I know all men are like very visual, and then so they won't pursue a girl who, they don't find attractive, but beauty fades. And that's what I kind of learned in my last relationship. But they also have to enjoy spending time with you. And that kind of comes into like compatibility. And there's a little bit of like you won't really know unless you get to know them. And that's the whole point of courtship. And that's the whole point of dating, to get to know them, right? And then once you realize like, yeah, I really like this girl, really love this girl, and she also reciprocates that, then it's time to put the ring on it and time to get married. Like, there's no reason why you should be dating for someone for more than 2 years. Like, that's the maximum I give.
I'm agree with you on that.
I'm like, even if you're not ready financially, like, dude, just get married and then figure it out. Cause like let's say and like, let's say you're a college student, like, yeah, move in together or something. Like, you can do something to make your marriage work. Just why are you prolonging your dating relationship when you can just be married? So anyways, that's those are the things that guys look for. And then for me personally, well, everything that I listed, but I think one thing really, really big is like, because if she is a God-fearing woman, like, I truly do believe that she'll be a traditional, quote unquote, traditional woman. And then she'll value family, and she will desire to have children. And I'm not saying she has to desire to have 10 children. But like, and
no, that's what you want. If that's what you want,
that is what I want personally. 5 to 10, anywhere from 5 to 10. I definitely want to adopt as well. So a few adopted kids among that number. But like, she will value family, and she will value her God-given authority to be a nurturer, to be a caretaker, and to be like, because let's just be honest, like, not only spiritually, emotionally, physiologically, and like socially, like, are women better at raising children, but biologically they are really the only one who can raise children because men can't lactate. So like, we can't breastfeed them. And let's say like, because of we have so much technology, it's like, yeah, like, okay, whatever, you can have formula and things like that. But if we're living like 200 years ago, only a woman can raise and take care of children.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why God has given men stronger bones, stronger muscles, testosterone, which cultivates that, right? And there's a reason why God gave women estrogen, and there's a design to things, and embracing that design is great. So for me, that's what I look for. Kind of want to look for a woman who wants to stay at home, and and then like before we have kids and after we have kids, what she can do whatever she wants. That's totally cool. I think that's great. But then while we're raising kids, just like making the kids the priority. And then also, I have no racial preferences. All my past relationships have been with the Korean girl, like my serious ones, but kind of realized like I'm okay with anyone really. It's just, do I love them, and does she love God, and do I get along with him? But I am, in terms of like my type, I like cutesy small girls, and I'm not that tall. I'm like 5'8", and she has to be shorter than me, like shorter than like 5'5" or shorter. And anything taller than that, I'm like, oh, like I want when I hug her, I want her head to rest on my chest.
Oh, so, like, that's cute. Y'all
that's
hear that?
Like, yeah. So like cutesy, small, petite, and kind of like also more introverted, because I'm super extroverted. I'm super loud. And so I kind of want someone to also balance me out in that way. So that's kind of like what I'm
really, that's interesting. I'm pretty extroverted and I want another extrovert, but I always attract introverts. What? Why do you?
Because opposites attract. Have you met me and my husband?
That's true. Yeah.
Like you need a social introvert. Like that's what I define myself as a social introvert. I like people, I like being around them, but they exhaust me.
Yeah. That's true. When I was there that weekend, I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. And then Vic was like, this is fun. I'm going to take a break for a second.
I go, Mal, I need a nap. Granted, we were up till like 4 a.m. Yeah. But I needed a nap.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I love people. I miss this so much.
And like Mal is like totally a morning, like she's thriving off like 3 hours of sleep because she's around people. I'm like,
and that's exhausted. I want someone to match my energy. That's but anyway, so you were saying you would like a socially introverted person.
Yeah, just someone who's like more introverted and more on the quieter side. Like definitely not someone who like can't carry a conversation.
Right.
But it's just someone to balance me out, because I have a lot of energy. I'm very extroverted. I'm pretty loud. And so just to kind of balance that out,
Okay, ladies. So if you are like that, let us know. I think it's better if he pursues you. So I wouldn't. Do you care if they slide into your DMs, or would you rather?
See, that's the thing.
Is that
like
too much?
I think it's fine. I think it's totally great that like woman, like I think it's good, and I think it's a good thing, and I think it's totally fine when like women showing their interest. But I think that the man has to pursue. So like a girl can slide into the guy's DMs and like start a conversation or say hey, just to like pique his interest and let like him know that she exists and she has some sort of interest. But then it's then like you have the ball as the girl, and then you give it to the guy, and the ball is in the guy's court, and the guy must pursue. If the guy does not pursue, it will not work, because the man always has to love the woman more. Yes. And that's just the reality of it. Because
let me just say, ladies listening, that is 110% the truth. If you find yourself loving a guy more than the guy likes you, run. You're going to get hurt. Yes. You're probably already hurting. So just run. You don't want to get hurt more. Guy has to love the girl more. Okay, continue.
No, absolutely. And I totally agree with that. And it's like, you see it anecdotally, but it's also very clear in the evidence. Like men just like are more fickle than women. Women tend to be more loyal. And when it comes to relationships, that's why guys don't really keep up with each other once they're not in close proximity. But girls always talk. They always keep up over text, over FaceTime. I barely talk to any of my guy friends anymore, like my closest guy friends. But and like the silver lining in that is that like whenever I see my guy friends again, I'm like, it was like we like just hang out and just go right where we left off. But then with girls, it's kind of like, oh, you haven't talked to me in a while. It's kind of like, ooh, beef.
So are you mad at me? We haven't texted in like 2 days.
Exactly. So then when you think about that, like a man must love a woman more, because like he has to, because he also will be the provider and protector. And if he is not wearing the pants, and if he does not love you more than you love him, then let's say, for example, you're sleeping, whatever, and then a burglar walks in. He's gonna be like, "Honey, go!" Instead of him going out with the gun and saying, "I'm gonna protect my wife and my
That's
kids,"
funny.
right? And then this is
no.
the unfortunate reality of
Yeah.
today's culture. It's so toxic, and they're trying to emasculate men, tell
Mhm.
men that like, no, holding a door for a woman, or paying for her meal, providing for her, walking her home, that's all patriarchal. I'm like, so what? Like, honestly, what's wrong with the little patriarchy? Because all healthy societies have strong
Yep.
men who
Mhm.
put themselves last and put the needs of women and children first. And
Mhm.
that's not a bad thing.
And girls, we should stop accepting that. Like, if you are on a date with someone and it's your first date and he invited you and he's talking about splitting the check, or even like asking you to pay for it, do not accept that anymore. If he really doesn't have the money, go ahead and split it, because don't walk out on the check. But then lose his number. Like, there's no reason. We do not have to accept that. Once again, if he really cannot pay for it, do it because you're already there. But like, do not accept anything after that. It's not. It's not worth it.
I don't know. Have you guys watched the movie Kate and Leopold? It's an old movie.
No.
It's with Hugh Jackman and Meg Ryan. If for anyone listening, if you have a chance, you should watch it. It's a movie that came out in 2001. It's a good movie, but basically Hugh Jackman plays this old British duke who moved to the United States. And then he gets transported into like modern day New York. But it's like he was so appalled about the way that men treat women. Like, they have no respect for them anymore. Like, for example, when a woman would leave the table, he would stand up and she'd be like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm like, that it is custom, and it's, respectful for us to, stand up whenever a woman leaves the table." He always held the door. He had this fancy rooftop dinner for her, and he was just like teaching her how to dance and providing for her, waking up super early to prepare breakfast for her, like all these things. And these are good things. And when we say make men masculine again, and when we say bring back good traditional values, this is what we mean. Because those kind of men protect women, they honor women, and so they don't just sleep with them whatever chance they get, but they are self-controlled, they're disciplined, and then they go out of their way to serve woman, right? In Ephesians 5, when Paul talks about, people always look at, wives submit to your husbands, and that's so oppressive. But literally Paul says for husbands to love your wives as Christ loved the church. And what did Christ do for the church? He died for the church. And so this is what we mean by bringing back traditional values and biblical masculine men, for men to go out of their way to serve women. And who's ever listening to this, if your man can't even do the bare minimum of paying for your meal, driving you, walking you home, opening the door for you, pulling out your chair as you sit down, all these things that are very basic, don't settle. Honestly, do not settle. You deserve so much more. And there are a lot of great men out there willing to do that for you.
Yeah. As soon as you find them, go ahead and send them our way. But no, you're 100% right. And last thing on this, and then we have some quick fire questions and we'll close. But another, ladies, do not settle. And I know I'm 26. I want 8+ kids. And I do think about that little time, I'm a woman, so I can't wait as long as other men. So I think about that. But just really one thing that I've been thinking about, and in my church, we're going through Ecclesiastes, which I've been in Christian school my whole life. I know the Bible, but I realized I haven't really sat down and read Ecclesiastes before. Very interesting. I mean, everyone should go through it. Very mind-boggling. But my whole point being is we as women, we cannot settle. We can't, even if you feel as if the clock is running out, even if you meet someone that's he's very handsome and he has a decent job, but the number one thing is a man submitted to Christ. So if you don't have if this man does not have this, we cannot settle. There's a lot of men out there, and there's a lot of good men out there, but if they're not submitted to Christ, I run. That is not worth it. You cannot, in today's day and age, you cannot settle. You couldn't back then, but you really cannot settle. There is no reason. And I understand the feeling, everybody listening. I get it. Sometimes it does feel, especially in today's world, because the world's kind of crazy. It'd be nice to have someone to hug at night, but now is not the time to settle. You cannot settle. Anyway, so let's really quick, we're just going to ask you a couple of fun questions, and then we'll ask you the big question, and then we'll close.
Okay.
So first thing is I want to ask you, you mentioned anime, and anime is a very controversial topic. Riding with my friends to a wedding the other day, and they were saying how they're not concerned about their kids being ugly because they know they're not going to have ugly kids. They're concerned about their kids being weird. And one of my friends goes, yeah, like watching anime. My other friend knew that I watch anime, and she looked at me and I said, do I speak up? I was like, yes, you know what? I am going to speak up because anime has a bad rep for whatever well, no, I know the reason, but there are normal people that watch anime. So I appreciate you saying it and saying it without being like, and just being bold about it. What is your top 3 favorite animes?
Favorite is Attack on Titan for sure, hands down.
So good.
Animation, music, story is just phenomenal.
Fantastic.
And most animes.
I haven't seen the last season yet, though, so don't,
Yeah, it's
don't
so
say too
good.
much.
But
I haven't seen the
like
last one.
most animes, they always give their characters plot armor, but they just kill off everyone. I'm like, wow, this is realistic. This is amazing. So that's number 1. There's a bunch up there. Another one's Full Metal Alchemist. Brotherhood, that one is really, really good.
My brother's telling me to watch that.
Yeah, that one's really, really good. What else did I really enjoy? I mean, there's so much. I can like pull up. I have a whole list. I like to keep track of what animes I watch.
Good. I like that. I like normalizing this. Good.
Yeah, but I also really enjoy kind of like the mainstream ones like One Piece and Naruto and all of that stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so if someone's never watched anime and honestly thinks like anime people are weird, what is the number 1 anime you would tell them to watch?
Attack on Titan. Yes, that was my gateway drug or gateway anime. Because before then, before junior year of high school, I was like, dude, anime's for weirdos. Like they're ew. And then my brother was like, watch Attack on Titan. I was like, no. And he was like, just do it. I was like, okay. And I watched it. I was like, holy crap, this is amazing.
Okay, so that's my story, but with Death Note, I was like, I'm not gonna watch anime. My brother's like, watch Death Note, you're gonna love it. I was like, no, those are weirdos, not gonna do it. I watched Death Note. I literally would bring my laptop I was in college. I brought my laptop to the cafeteria because I had to finish it. Death Note is so good. It is so the best. Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
so good. I'm actually rewatching it again. Like it's that. Oh, so good.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah. Okay.
What video games do you like?
I play a bunch of them. Like I play a lot of Mario, and I play I did, and like Legend of Zelda. But I guess my main one is Smash Ultimate. I play competitively. And I don't play as much anymore just because I'm kind of busy. But yeah, Smash Ultimate.
My husband's like, I guess kind of a pro on Madden.
He absolutely is a pro.
Okay, he is a pro on Madden. Like,
he's a literal professional, but
yeah. So
okay. Next question. Top 2 favorite movies.
2 favorite movies? Oh man, there's a lot of good ones. Interstellar's up there. That movie was phenomenal.
I have not seen that.
Is that the one with Sandra Bullock?
With Matthew McConaughey and Christopher Nolan directed it. I have to rewatch it. I forgot who the
It's one of those mind ones.
Okay.
The ones everybody's like,
no, they were in space.
Yeah. But it was still kind of like mind-boggling. Like,
okay. People are always like, yeah, it's so good. It was so deep. If you didn't get it, you were dumb. It's one of those.
That one was good. And like I know, so like yeah, I'm a huge Disney guy, and then so like I love.
What's your
Disney.
top Disney movie?
Man, I love all of them, but like I'm a huge Frozen guy.
Really?
Huge Frozen guy, and it's like people are like, "What the frick is wrong with you?" Like, and this is where I guess people think more. I'm like more traditionally, like I guess a little more femme, but I'm like, dude, like I don't care, but I love Disney. And Frozen, like
I love that.
All the sound, like I memorized like all the words for all the songs. But the movie that made me cry like crazy was Inside Out. That movie just
I didn't get it. Like
okay.
I know, like I just was like, I'm like, I don't know, like I just wasn't into it at all. Like that, and then Soul, like people were saying how good Soul was. I'm like,
Soul was good.
I didn't see it.
I didn't like it, but I will say I was the kid that was traumatized by Toy Story and Finding Nemo. Like
Toy Story 3, I think that was the first time I ever cried in a cartoon. And I didn't just cry, I like sobbed.
It creeped me out. Like Toy Story creeped me out. I'm like, my toys are coming alive. And then Finding Nemo is literally this kid gets kidnapped. It's like Taken for kids. I'm like, this traumatized me.
That's funny. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna do this or that. We'll do 3 of them really quick. Mountains or beach?
Beach.
Popcorn or chips?
Chips.
Candy or chocolate?
Candy.
Okay. So last question. Oh, go
I
ahead.
was
You
gonna
got
ask,
one?
what do you have, like a book you like? Like,
Oh,
what's
good
like your
question.
number one book you believe everyone should read?
The Bible.
Well, no, but sorry, besides the Bible.
No, that's good though. I like that you said that.
Well, no, I forgot that like part because everyone says the Bible. Like, no, besides the Bible.
There's a lot of books I want to read. I literally know everything that's in this book, but I haven't read it. It's called Wild at Heart. And it's about biblical masculinity, and I recommend every single guy to read it. But basically what I believe about masculinity is like all in that book. I just haven't read it. I just talked to a lot of people about it. So basically what happens is my brother reads a lot. And then so my brother and I would talk about it and I would learn from it. And then I would kind of like do it. But then I talked to my dad recently and he said, you should read more. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. I don't read that much. I would recommend that. But I think in terms of like one Christian book that really changed my life was Forgotten God by Francis Chan. And
love Francis Chan.
Yeah. And it's about the Holy Spirit, and it completely changed my view on the Holy Spirit. And it made me more like in tune with the Holy Spirit, and to know that it's not just like some guru who like is like, whoa, floating in the air, but it's part of the Godhead, right? Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And so the Holy Spirit is a he, and the Holy Spirit operates today as much as he did, in the apostolic age and in biblical times. So that book is really, really good. I highly recommend that for anyone who's kind of more like theologically conservative. And because theologically I'm more charismatic, but like if you're more theologically conservative, then I highly recommend that book, and it's really, really good.
Okay. Next time we'll have to get into that. I'm very interested in your
we did in youth group in high school. We did Francis Chan Crazy Love.
That book is good.
Oh yeah, people read that in my high school. Okay, so absolute last question. And this is something that we're starting that's new, and we're going to ask every guest this. If every woman in the entire world stopped what they were doing and looked at you for direction on what to do with their life, what would you tell them? Or like any advice? That was a weird way I worded that. Any advice to every single woman?
Ignore the culture. And so abandon feminism and embrace femininity, and you will find that you find the most freedom, and it's so liberating when you embrace God's design for you. And so what the world is trying to do, they're trying to rob you of your joy, rob you of your purpose, and rob you of fulfillment by lying to you and saying that you don't need men to succeed, and you don't need men to live a fulfilled life. You don't need family. You don't need kids. Those are all hindrances and obstacles and, chains, and they're tying you down. But these are the things that make life worth living. And so embrace that. And, if there is a chance to get married earlier, embrace that. And it's okay, because that's the kind of like the unfortunate reality of today's culture, where it's a blend of feminism and progressive and secular progressivism and all these things, where people are getting married later and later, and then we have like strong sex drives as young men and women, and we want to have kids, and we want to be in a marriage, but then we aren't. So then we sleep around, and then there's a lot of kids born out of wedlock, there's a lot of kids aborted, and then it's just a mess. And so embrace that. Embrace God's design for you to be a feminine woman, and it's not to be oppressive, and it's not to tear you down, but it's to bring you more life and joy. And it's not always easy, right? As a guy, like it's not always easy to be responsible and embrace masculinity, but it's the ideal to strive for, because I know that's where I find the most freedom. And when we walk within God's commandments and designs for us, we actually find the most freedom. So I also want to, encourage and edify all the women listening to this, that embrace that femininity, embrace God's design for you, and you'll find that you find the most joy and freedom in that.
Oh, love that. Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. I think everyone is going to love this episode, and I think everyone's going to appreciate all of the things that you said, men and women. Specifically women, because that's our target, but the men, Jerry, that listen, we really appreciate that. And then last thing, can you tell everyone where to follow you and all of
and highlight your podcast and YouTube? Like, hype yourself up real quick.
Yeah.
Your podcast and YouTube.
So unfortunately, I haven't done much with that because I've been so busy, but I plan on starting it up more at the end of this month. But definitely you can just look up my name on YouTube and you'll find me in my videos and my podcast episodes. But then I'm mainly on Instagram, on Twitter, and you can just find me, the Kangmin Lee. Also on Facebook and TikTok. But if you just want to find me, just Google my name and then all my social media will pop up there. So yeah.
And what is your real quick, and what is your plan with like your podcast and YouTube? Like, what is like it about?
So I just rant and share my thoughts on everything going on in culture. And so I have a lot of planned videos about why Christians can't align with the left, why abortion is wrong, why, just like certain things talking about politics, faith, and culture. And for me, I'm not so much concerned about politics as I am concerned about how it affects everyone's life. Mm-hmm. So if I hear about like Nancy Pelosi's corruption, like it makes me mad. But like, I'm not going to focus. I don't focus on that as much, but because it doesn't affect all Americans. But then, let's say, for example, the increased sexualization of children using the LGBTQ agenda, that affects all our children. And that is something I'll stand up against. So things like that. And I hate politics. It's all gross and disgusting, but it's important to talk about it because it affects everyone.
Love that. Everyone, we will plug all of his socials. I'll put it in the show notes, and I'll probably do a blog post referencing some of the things that he talked about. And I just want to tell you again, thank you so much for coming on. We really, really appreciate it. And everyone, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you subscribe, like, review, rate, comment, share with all of your friends. I think this is another good episode to share with your liberal Lizzie friends, specifically the part about abortion. And then honestly, the end part too, because it's very encouraging to hear a man, edify us women. We need to hear that, especially in, today's society where it kind of does feel like there is an attack on womanhood. But yeah, so thanks everybody for listening. Bye.
Bye guys.
Bye everyone.